welcome. In today's video, I'll be going over a new feature that was just released. I think it's really cool. It allows you to create SQL Server on Azure virtual machines with AG already configured. In the past, where you have to do it manually, it's a really long, tedious process, right? You have to create the virtual machines and also join the virtual machine to the domain, and then create the cluster, configure SQL Server, configure the always on. This takes all that plumbing work away. It makes things a lot simpler. I'll be dropping a link below. Go ahead and give this a visit. What there's prerequisites that is needed. It's not. There are things that it will need to, in order for this to work, is one is a virtual network with a multi subnet, right? You can have, depending on how many virtual machines that you want to create for SQL Server, you can have those on different subnets. Also, a domain controller in the same virtual network. That's pretty simple. You can use the one you already have, or just create a new one. And also, you have to have the permissions to add those computers or those virtual machines into the domain controller. But currently, it's available to us. It's on the Azure Marketplace images, and I'll show you that in our demo to how to create that. All right, I'm back to Azure. Here's to the portal. The first thing I'm going to do is go up here, Azure SQL, and then hit the create button here. This is going to give us three options. What I'm going to do is select the image that I want to use. Currently, I'm just going to test this on the SQL developer, just to not get charged for the license. And then I'm going to create this. Once I put in the create, I'm going to just select the resource group I'm going to have it in. This is how many virtual machines do you want to add? I'm just going to leave it at 2. You can also edit the name and put the test here, test VMs. And then with the region, I'm gonna leave it South Central, availability zone or availability set. I'll just leave that in default. Here, good thing about, I can select the virtual machine, the SKU size. I'm just gonna select B2MS for cost. And then I'm gonna be putting in a virtual machine administrator account here. Put in the password. If you have any hybrid benefits, you can also use that here. I'm going to use the default VNet. I already have that created with 3 subnets. So I'll show that in the bottom. I'm going to allow 3389 so I can connect to the virtual machines using a public IP. And you don't have to. It's not recommended for security. You probably want to use a jump box or to connect to these SQL servers. But for testing purpose, I'll leave it on. And then, how do you want to? Where do you want to move? Which subnet do the VM belongs to? I'm just going to select one for each subnet, and now I'm going to check if I want to delete those public IP in the NIC when the VM is deleted. I'm going to say yes for cleanup. And then I'm going to be give a cluster name here. So just say SQL 2020. Here in the witness storage account, I want to select an account for the cloud witness, which is pretty cool. So just currently select the one I have. And now here's the important thing is, I need to have a domain user that currently is existing on the current AD domain that I have, and also the permissions that is needed to create those computer objects, right? So I'm just gonna say Joe Smith, right, as arbitrarily as, and then I'm gonna put in my domain FQND, which is right, and I'm just going to use the same service account as Joe Smith. I'm just going to go back next to the disks. It's pretty cool here. It allows you to create which disk that you want. It's going to be, you could do standard, premium, and then encryption type. And now here's the good. It's pretty customizable. where it allows you to select the disk, right? A tip here is if you don't need the 1 terabyte, then you certainly go down to the different SKUs here for the different size of the disk. But if the tip, you can always come back later and change the SKU to a higher tier. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to downgrade. So, so if you don't need 1 terabyte, you can just go to 1 gig for both for testing, and then that will set that up automatically. And also, if you want to, depending on where you want the log drives to sit in, the temp DB is already going to be at the D drive. It's going to use the local temp storage. And if you want to change the data drive location, you're certainly able to do that here. I'm just going to click OK, just leave everything default. Now here's the SQL Server configuration. Want to give a availability group name. I'm going to be SQL. I'm going to just say AG 2002 tests, right? And also the AG listener tests. I'm not going to do automatic failover or sync commit. I'm just going to leave all those currently unchecked. I can always go back later to change that. And yeah, SQL Server port 1433. I'm going to enable this. The reason is it's just a great way, a great tool to, just in case I need a back channel to log into my SQL Server. I can always turn it off later and just leave that if you have any Azure Key Vault integration. I don't, but you certainly can enable that. I'm going to go ahead and click next and review. And what it does is just kind of validates this. I'm not going to create it. It will take some time. I've already created this. So once it validates, go ahead and go create. I'm going to go back into my resource group here. And what it does, it creates all the infrastructure for me, and it configures it for all my virtual machines. And it's pretty neat. One tip is for the NSG, if you are using a public endpoint, public IP, you will have to add or change the NSG. Currently it's going to be deny all, but that's not a big deal. And once that is created, here's what it looks like. Here's my virtual machine, all created. I restored EventureWorks 2019, did a backup, moved it to full recovery. Sorry, I should have changed the full recovery, did a backup, and then I added the AG into the availability group. This was all configured. I didn't even have to configure the SQL AG. The listener was already configured. I can just connect to the listener if I want to here. So it's a lot of things that I did not have to do, which saves a lot of time if I need to quickly stand up an AG. So here I connected to listener, have my 2019 synchronizing. I can always do a failover here, and it's already done. So let me see. Yeah, and yeah, it's pretty simple. I tested with 3 VMs. And I haven't done it with anything more than 3, but yeah, feel free welcome. It already has the cluster configured. You already have the cloud witness. See, probably could show you that here in the storage account, in my containers, and there you go. I have a cloud witness already configured. Well, here you have it. It's a quick, this process has. When I went through it, it was so easy compared to what I had to do when manually, right? So if you haven't seen this yet, go ahead and give it a try. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. I'll talk to you guys next time.